Shalom, shalom from the Aliyah Return Center. Good to see you. It's great to be doing another podcast. Oh, thank you. And so we are really just glad to have these times together every Shabbat where we discuss as Galileans here in the Galilee of the Nations, along with nations throughout the earth. So there's been this theme, throughout this year. Two things really. One is reconciliation. Another is legacy, right? And I just want to take these few minutes and just for Shabbat, as Shabbat is entering, to just think for a moment about legacy. What comes into your mind when you think of legacy? We've been doing these series throughout the land of Israel, really high quality, and I'll post a little link for you to look at them. But about reconciliation. Now, reconciliation, it doesn't start there. It starts, because it's like there's so many ways to look at reconciliation. Like an accountant, and you've got, different ledgers, and there could be a debt in one ledger, and they need to be reconciled. You could look at it in a way that God, the greatest reconciler, He is in His nature a reconciler, provides forgiveness or propitiation for this debt, affording a coming together, a reconciling. Forgiveness takes one, reconciling takes two. Forgiveness allows for there to be a reconciling, and then reconciling is that coming together, or this piyus, it's called in Hebrew. But I've been thinking a lot about just the aspects of reconciliation within one's heart, within one's destiny, within one's identity, reconciliation with God and man, and that is something that is definitely needed. Reconciliation between our fellow man, Arab and Jew, Israel and the nations. I mean, my wife's working on this new book. You've seen her other book. She's working on a new book, which is all about that moment when the camps, the Holocaust death camps, were liberated, and the movie that she's working on, it starts there, and that person, it goes to the story of it's not done yet. So just to give you an idea of this person been liberated, but doesn't know if the bombs are going to kill them, if the Nazis are gone, if they're going to come back. Where's her family? There's someone else living in her house now, wearing her clothes, and then looking to find the family, eventually making Aliyah. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but how does that person's heart come to peace and come to a place? How can there be reconciliation with Israel and the nations, and different nations? And so my point is, going into this thought of reconciliation, it's a deep one, and we're all to be ambassadors of reconciliation. This is on you and this is on me in various ways, in various situations. And there's so many different types of situations. But keeping this short, I want to also look at legacy. By the way, if you haven't got yourself an Aliyah Return Center mug, please do get yourself one. It's good. It reminds you to pray for what God's got going in His great green Galilee. But now think of this for a moment, legacy. What comes into your mind when you think of legacy, right? That is what the reconciled ones are all about. It's the story of the reconciled ones. Our legacy. What do we leave? Well, obviously, I'm talking about a good legacy, not a bad legacy. And what is that, So all these heroes have been coming into my mind, and I'd love to talk more about reconciliation. I'd love to talk more about legacy. But for this short little time together, as Shabbat is on its way, people are getting ready for Shabbat. Legacy. Now, I can only, when I think of legacy, right away I think of heroes of Israel. The Bible has many people who left legacy, right? Heroes like Samson. He was like, we're going to be free, but in the end, he became very, he went his own way, and he reaped the fruits of that, We don't want that to be our legacy. Let's look at people like Gideon. Gideon and 300 men, and they fought the Midianites, and he was hiding in a cave, and he was so scared, but he's called a mighty warrior. He's called a man of valor by an angel, and suddenly when he goes to give him these cakes, right? And he's like, wait, let me give you an offering. Let me offer something to you, to God. And you have here this scene where where suddenly he just touches these cakes and it just explodes. And Gideon then goes with, 10,000 people, and then no, it's got to be less, and then no, it's got to be less, and then finally he's there at this moment of decision, and he's like, Lord, I'm going to do it your way. Yeah, I'm going to do it your way. That's supposed to be his legacy. We're going to do it your way. We're going to tear down the altars. The false idols. We're going to do it your way, God. And but what happens is then with these 300, he does win a massive victory and liberates Israel. But it doesn't end there, because you have this thing where he says, I want just one thing. Can you make me a fancy memorabilia of my victories and my great commandership of winning this? And so what happens is he goes and he puts that in the middle of the camp, and people start to bow down to that. And just the way that he fought to liberate Israel from idolatry and from the judgment for idolatry, well, guess what? It happened again, and they started to bow down to this very vest of gold that he made. He took the earrings he took the crescents from the camels' necks, gold crescents. That's what Islam still has, gold crescents. But my point is, in the end, his legacy wasn't good. In one single day, all 70 of his children were killed. In one day, Abimelech, also was killed later. You know the story. Wasn't a good legacy. You think of what, tombstones. Is that what I'm talking about? No. Tombstone could maybe capture a sentence. But a legacy is what people take from our lives, And that's legacy is something so hard to hold on to, because the enemy wants to steal our destiny, steal our identity, and steal our legacy, our kingdom legacy. So what I want to talk to you about is a man named Truman, Harry Truman. This man, 33rd president of the United States. You remember the story? He wasn't thinking he was trying to leave a legacy, though. He's trying to follow what God wants. And when you do what God wants, you leave a good legacy, right? So what happens is Jacobson, his friend was named Jacobson, and he says, I'm about to go. He was prophesied over as a young boy, and that he would one day save Israel in his Sunday school. And so you have this moment where that is being put to the test, right? And I hear the joy of everyone getting ready for Sabbath day in the background. I love it. Running to and fro to get ready for Shabbat. Now, what it is that Truman had a choice, because no one wanted to vote for the founding of the state of Israel. The State Department of the United States wasn't into it. United Nations wasn't into it. He had just appointed a foreign secretary, and he just appointed the Marshall Plan. So the Marshall was the guy, and they weren't for it. And so Truman says, I don't care. I know what I'm called to do, and I'm going to go for what God wants. And he's read his Aliyah scriptures, which I hope you have in his Sunday school. So he's read his Aliyah scriptures. And that was the moment. That was the moment where he said, I'm going to stand in the United Nations, and I'm going to say Israel will have a homeland right where God promised. And that's what happened. Of course, a contemporary who lived at the same time, his name was Yigal Allon. Yigal means will redeem, and so there's this general. He's our most famous general. Everybody here learns about him. He became a politician. He was almost going to be the prime minister, of Israel. And Yigal Allon, and he was a very brave fighter. He rallied people together. He didn't care if they were a woman or a man. He says, we're going to defend Israel from what happened is, he had to bring together the Irgun, the Palmach, the Lehi, and the Haganah, and bring them together, these militias, and eventually they would become, under Ben-Gurion, they would become the IDF, Israel Defense Force. And so you have these heroes arising. He's a simple Galilean, Yigal Allon. But you know what he said after he achieved every kind of victory in literature, in I think he was a PhD, he was almost a prime minister, he was our minister of defense, he's I think minister of education. Well, he did a lot. He's a hero. But his legacy, you know what it is? It isn't that he's a big military hero. His legacy, and he said, I want my legacy to be this, is he would take tea and he'd say, I invite all the Arabic neighbors to come to a festival once a year, and also throughout the year, but a big festival once a year. I want to invite all of our neighboring countries to come and commune one with another. And he would invite the Circassians. He'd invite the Druze. He'd invite the Bedouins. He'd invite sheikhs from Saudi Arabia, and they'd come, and this fledgling Jewish state would have discussions and fun and food, and he said, that's my legacy, to not throw away our identity or give up on the dream of the homeland, but find a way to, like an arrow. One of his sayings was, if you take an arrow back into history, you take a Jewish person and you bring them back and help them to understand the history better, and the bow is like the society. You bring the society back, it can go forward better and clearer and with more openness to friendship. And he said, I want my legacy to be friendship. And I thought about this a lot, and I'm like, this is wonderful. Wouldn't it be great for all of us to ask God, what is it you're asking us? And we will do that, even if other people don't understand it or don't like it, or it's not popular, or no one remembers us for it. It's a kingdom legacy. It's a kingdom legacy. And we can't just think of what we're going through in life, and did we buy diapers? Did we buy enough dog food? We have to do those things, but we gotta still look. And that's what Yigal Allon was saying, is looking forward and legacy. What's your legacy? As I wrap this up, what is your legacy? What are you called to do, to be, and to be part of? Are you one who just goes with the crowd? Or are you one who it goes forward and forges a path? I believe that's what a pioneer is, and I believe that that's what we all are together as those who understand Aliyah, who understand God's plan for not only this land, but for the blessing of all of Abraham's children and all the families of the earth. So it's exciting, and I want to end with this: is I got to go to Yigal Allon's house in the Galilee here, and just you go there and you see, wow, what a humble person. What a humble person. I got to go to Truman's house, and I sit there on his porch, and I was like, what a humble person. What a humble man. And he said he just wanted to go and yell at the cows and live the farm life to keep himself humble, to keep himself focused. And so anyway, one of the greatest legacies. I want you to write in the comments, please, as we wrap this up and say Shabbat Shalom. When you think legacy, what do you think of? Who do you think of? Is there some person? Maybe it's the greatest Galilean rabbi who ever lived, Yeshua, and the legacy that continues to live on through his servants. What do you think of? How can we attain that legacy, and that everyone who knows about us will know that is what this guy's about. That is what this woman's about, is this, and it's kingdom legacy. I know I want more of that. And one of the things I want to be remembered for always, I'm not talking about, we're not talking about that, but I want people to know that I believed in the tabernacle of David. I believe in it. I believe that it's being restored, and that I'm part of it, and we're part of it, and a dwelling place of the presence of God in this land as a blessing, not only to the sons and daughters of Abraham, but to all the families of the earth here in Israel. So I just wanted to say thank you, and hey, Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for joining this podcast. We have cool guests on all the time, different cool people who I'll interview. But today I just wanted it to be intimate. And Shabbat Shalom. See you guys next week for the weekly podcast.